This conference will now be recorded.
Did I tell TV 79 we're on the air? First item on the agenda is subdivision application number 626, lane filling and regrading application number 478, Stephen and Enid Oresman at 49 Sunswyck Road. Proposal to remove existing improvements on the property and to subdivide the 2.33 plus my acre subject site into 2 building lots respectively, 1.0 acres and 1.27 acres in size, and to construct 1 new single-family residence on each lot with associated grading and form related site development activities. The subject property is situated on the west side of Sunswyck Road, approximately 265 feet south of its intersection with Tory Hole Road, and shown on Assessor's map number 64 as lots 25 and 26 in the R1 zone. Jeremy.
This hearing is going to be continued to Tuesday, July 7th, 2020 at 8 p.m. via GoToMeeting.
They're just not ready?
No, they went to EPC. There were a number of neighbor concerns, and they're going to be going back to EPC on July 1st. And hopefully by then, EPC will be able to get us a report in time for our July 7th meeting.
Please. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda. If you guys remember, last week we missed 2 items, so they go first tonight. The first one is a continuation of a public hearing regarding lane filling, excavation, and regrading application number 145D as in David, Jean and Tracy Sykes at 5 Homewood Lane. I never read this into all. Proposal to construct 2 new additions to the existing residence of approximately 10 by 21 foot sunroom and a 11 by 33 foot garage, and to reconfigure and extend the existing driveway and to perform related site development activities, including the construction of a retaining wall and installation of screening plantings. The 2.44 acre plus minus subject parcel is located on the west side of Homewood Lane at its intersection with the former, at the corner formed by the intersection of Crossroad and shown on Assessor's map number 65 as lot 2 in the R1 zone. The public hearing was open on June 2nd, 2020. This is a site that is in Tokenique.
Yes, this property is in Tokenique, and it slopes from the northern part of the property, which is where the driveway is, down to the southern part of the property. The project is actually a cutting project, a slight cut along the northern property line in order to give them room. They're doing a garage addition, and the cut will allow them to expand the driveway to get them necessary backing room. They've worked closely with the neighbor to the north, and you have in your packets a screen planting plan showing a number of trees and large plantings that will be going on the neighbor's property to the north, because what they're doing is cutting right up to the property line, putting a small retaining wall in, and thus the screening will be on the neighbor's property. So it's not a very large project. The amount of new impervious surface is not that great, and it's in the lower part of the watershed. But really here, the reason it's before the commission is more so the location of the grading than the amount of grading. John Donahoe is here to explain the application on behalf of the applicant.
Please take it away, John. And I apologize for the commission that we missed you last week. I did recognize you the whole time, sitting there very patiently, and you're back again, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for having me tonight. I'd like to thank the commission for hearing our application. My name is John Donahoe. I'm a licensed architect. I'm with Donahoe Associates Architects in Wilton, Connecticut, and I am here representing Tracy and Jean Sykes of 5 Homewood Lane. Our application consists of a sunroom addition, garage addition, and an expansion of the existing driveway. Oops, lost you there. So this is a zoning location survey. And it shows that we were on a 2.4 acre lot. It's a R1 zone. It shows that we meet the required setbacks of 40 feet for both the sunroom and the garage addition. It's a 40-foot front yard setback, a 40-foot rear setback, and we meet all of those. We also meet the maximum building coverage of 20%. We're proposing 4.4%. Second slide I show here is the site development plan. I'm going to try to zoom in here, maybe. And you can see here, sunroom addition, there's little impact. We're not planning on doing any additional grading in that area. The existing grades stay the way they are right now. The garage addition over here, it's also an expansion onto the existing driveway, which is also a flat area. So there won't be any extensive site work as far as the garage is concerned. Like the chairman said, the real expansion has to do with the driveway and the fact that we're within 15 feet of the property line. So in the green area, you can see, try to point it out here, you can see this is the expansion of the driveway, and this is the retaining wall that we're proposing. Also, there is a bit of ledge that we'd like to try to remove, and I'll show a picture further on showing that ledge and how much needs to be removed. The Department of Public Works sent a letter, I believe it's part of the record, showing that we're only increasing the impervious area by 822 square feet, which is less than the 1,000 square feet max. So they do not require a storm management plan. There is a storm drain in this location of the existing driveway that we're relocating back onto the driveway into the new expanded area, and that'll be reconnected to the existing Coltec unit. So we are still trying to retain all the storm water that we're increasing. The added impervious area, the driveway itself is only adding about 22 square feet of impervious area. And the reason that is because the garage addition is overlapping on top of the existing driveway. So net, there's no increase in that area. This is the architectural plan. Try to zoom in on one here. So this is probably the best plan to show you. It shows the existing sunroom and the addition to the sunroom. And it also shows the garage that's beyond here and the addition to the garage. And this is just another elevation showing the sunroom again. You can see we're just doing a crawl space area, and all of that soil will be removed from the site. And here's the garage addition on the side. This picture shows the back of the driveway where we're trying to expand the driveway. You can see the wood fence in the background here, the pole fence, and that is the property line in the background. Beyond is 7 Homewood Lane. It's owned by Andrew Phelps, and he has some vision through this area. This is during the winter time. I also have a picture in the summertime where it's a little more screened. But this is the driveway we're trying to expand in this area. And on the left here is the ledge area, and I'll show you a picture of the ledge a little more closely so you can understand that. So this is the driveway again. This is in the summertime, showing there is more screening in the summertime, obviously, when all the leaves come in. Glenn Ticehurst, who's a licensed landscape architect with Benedict Ticehurst, discussed with Mr. Phelps a screening plan, and I'll have him speak to that in just a minute. So the retaining wall is going to be placed in front of this wood fence, and you can see that there's only a bit of grade to be taken out in the beginning of it, about 6 inches of a grade to maybe 8 inches. And then when we hit the hill here, that's where we need to retain the soil. And the retaining wall is going to be about a 3-foot retaining wall. Over here to the left, you can see the ledge that's sticking out. And this Belgian block curbing actually curves around that ledge right now on the existing driveway coming out of the third bay of the garage. So this shows how the existing Belgian block driveway curves around that ledge. And we are proposing to remove the ledge to about this point in here. So that's probably around 8 feet of ledge we need to remove. And then again, you can see back into the area where the retaining wall will go. I did get a call from Mr. Holt Smith in regards to the ledge. And his concern would be if there would be any blasting or if we were just going to be jackhammering. And I assured him that we would just be jackhammering that amount of ledge. It's not a very substantial amount of ledge. Again, this is the screening plan now. This is a revised screening plan that we submitted based on conversations between Glenn Ticehurst, the landscape architect, and Mr. Phelps that lives at 7 Homewood Lane. So if Glenn is on, I'd love him to be able to speak to his screening plan and what we're proposing.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Glenn Ticehurst, landscape architect.
John?
Yes.
Before we do that, with your next expert, can we just check in with the commissioner to see if they have any questions first?
Oh, definitely. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to go ladies first. Jennifer Leahy, any questions at this point? She is. Jen, you're muted.
Hello, I'm good.
You're good?
No questions at this point.
Kara Gately, any questions at this point for Mr. I want to say Donahue, but Donahoe?
No, at this point, I have no questions. I appreciate the presentation. That was very helpful.
Thank you. Jim Rand,
I'm okay, thank you.
George Riley,
Nothing, sir. Thank you.
and Larry Warble.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, Chrissy Adams. Okay, John, next expert, please.
Hi, my name is Glenn Ticehurst. I'm a landscape architect. And we had met with Mr. Phelps next door to look at a couple different scenarios to help screen him. The one that seems to be most effective for him is the planting of the American holly along the property line. There is some additional existing hemlock near it, so the holly will is relatively shade tolerant. It's not so much that the holly is going to screen the house because there's really not much of a change to that view. It's more toward the expanded parking area. So, you know, these hollies at, I believe they were 5 to 5.5 feet, will come above the existing fence, screen the view down toward the cars if you're outside. And he was satisfied with that.
Okay.
I'd like to just add that I believe it is on record that he sent in a letter discussing his approval, that he is in favor of our application.
That's
Okay,
correct.
Right, Chairman.
If they send it in, we have it.
Okay, so John, just to be totally clear, your plan that says site development plan March 10th, 2020 has been updated by the one that was just shown on the screen, which is screening plan revised May 20th, 2020.
That's correct.
Great, thank you. Okay. Does any commissioners have any questions at this point on the screening plan? Ladies first, Kara or Jennifer?
Well, I guess my only question is, I thought when it was read, when the sort of agenda materials and when Steve and Jeremy went through it, it was explained that the screen materials maybe on the neighbor's property or on the property line. And I think then when the expert now just spoke that they were on the applicant's property, but not on the neighbor. So I just would like some clarification on that. That's really my only question. It's just a clarification point.
Sure, it's Glenn again. The planting will be on the neighbor's property. The expansion of the parking area and the retaining wall to provide enough room to safely back out of the garage. We're right up to the property line for the retaining wall. So that's why we spoke to Mr. Phelps next door to see if he would be supportive of doing the planting on his side, and he was. We talked about the different types of plants, and this is the final plan.
And there's no, like, but it's going to be clear that those then are his trees.
Correct.
So
We
there's
will
no
be-
like adverse possession that like now that they've planted it, that's.
No, we will, Mr. and Mrs. Sykes will bear the cost of providing the screening and doing whatever maintenance for that first year. And once it's established, there basically will be on Mr. Phelps' property. There's no intent to.
They're his trees.
Correct.
Okay.
Just to be brutally clear again, I think you just said if they die within the first year, Glenn, then Sykes is going to replace them.
That's correct. There'd be a guarantee.
Thank you. Jennifer, any questions about the landscaping or anything else I missed? No? You're waving your head no.
No. Sorry.
Okay. Larry Warble? You said no. George Riley?
No, thank you, Kara. Picked up on my concern nicely. Thank you.
And then Jim Rand?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, John?
I think that'll do it. Just thank you very much for hearing us.
Okay. At the end of the day, I think it's a small application for two small areas. The big thing is, yes, planting on the neighbor's property and chipping away at the ledge. I think you explained that. There's no new context systems coming in, and it's pretty de minimis. Additional coverage. What are we missing?
No, that's it. I guess my only question for John is the hole ramming, you're proposing hole ramming in lieu of blasting. You know how long you're gonna be out there hole ramming? Is it a week, a couple days? What do you think?
That's a tough question. Ledge varies in how hard it is. Just based on my experience, I would say about a week. It sounds about right. I wouldn't think it would take much more than a week.
Okay, because that is a concern, because certainly down in Tokenique, there's a lot of hole ramming and blasting going on. So certainly the smaller projects, but of course, in this case, it's not really a big impediment to your project, just enough to get that extra driveway space in. So you don't have to blast away the whole rock, just a little piece of it right there shown in that picture.
That's
It was
correct.
about 8.
I'm sorry.
And you said it's about 8 feet. You're going to go back.
I'm guessing around 8 feet. It may not even be that much, but it'd be safe to say 8 feet. And I was just going to point out that some of the ledge is actually just outcroppings of rock. It's really the lower area that becomes a little dense. By the time we get to the top here, we should be pretty good. This is pretty loose at the very top.
Okay.
Whatever the public has to say.
I would like to open this up now to the public. Anyone in the public domain would like to speak to this application? And tell me if you see anybody. Fred? I don't see anything. I'm sorry, Fred?
Nothing in the box. I
Okay,
don't see any public comment.
me neither. Okay. Sounds like we will take I would entertain a motion to adjourn, to close this hearing. George Riley, smiling.
Happy to do it.
Looking for a second. Kara Gately's mic's on. Jim Rand.
Jim Rand,
Jim Rand. Okay, all's in favor?
closed.
Hearing's closed. Thank you. All right, thank you, Josh. We'll probably deliberate in a couple weeks.
Yep, 2 weeks from today.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, continuation of public hearing regarding coastal site plan review number 312B, Christopher and Lauren Casaza, 17 Brush Island Road. Proposal to construct a stepping stone path, install an artificial turf area, construct a raised spa and expand the patio, installing a masonry fire pit, and design a low wall and steps, and to perform related site development activities within a regulated area. Subject property is located on the north side of Brush Island Road, approximately 1,300 feet west of its intersection with Homewood Lane, and shown on Assessor's map number 56 as lot 19 in the R1 zone. The public hearing was open last week on June 2nd, and now we're here today. I want to give the same.
We have Alice Eckerson is here, and Stuart Loeffler is here
There's
to present the application. Basically, there's, as Mr. O'Vanny mentioned, there's a number of smaller items which are all within the coastal zone. The property is right on the water. All the activity is uphill out of the flood zone, but really it allows them to get a number of items, stone path, spa in the yard. They're turning part of the yard into a turf area, and some plantings, a number of minor changes, which when you go out, one goes out to the site, are all occurring within an existing lawn area. So there's really no impact to the coastal resources. So I'll let Alice and Stuart take it from here. Coastal site plan review on the 17 Brush Island property.
Alice and Stuart, thank you very much for your patience last week. I did see your smiling face on the go-to meeting for about 2.5 hours, waiting your turn, and you were patient. Sorry we didn't get to last week. We're here today.
Thank you
I
for
think
that consideration. I'm Alice Eckerson of Eckerson Design Associates, and landscape architect for Lauren and Chris Casaza, and Stuart is listening in as well to answer any questions. The house is at the end of a shared driveway, and as Jeremy said, it's surrounded by Holly Pond on these two sides. The front of the house is here. This is the backyard. And I wanted to just point out a few lines. This is the VE line, limit of the VE zone, the AE zone. This is the mean high water line and the CAM line. And then also important, I think, is this pool fence, which wraps around the backyard. And that really is the limit of the manicured lawn and patio and planting beds, and then the natural areas. And as you can see, we're not going beyond this pool fence with any of these proposed changes. And they are sort of a lot of little items. There's a stepping stone path. They'd like to put in place of a gravel path that has steel edging. There would be no change in grade here. There's an area of manicured lawn that they want to create a 30 by 40 artificial turf area that would be on 3 to 4 inches of gravel and with sand infill, so it would still be a permeable surface. They want to square off this portion of the bluestone patio, which create more bluestone patio in an area that is currently planting bed and gravel path. This raised spa they're proposing, it goes in a location that is currently bluestone on concrete. At the other end of the pool, they would like to add bluestone patio with a fire pit. And then in this corner of the property, there's currently a low boulder wall that's very irregular and natural, and they would prefer something that's a little bit more traditional New England, and a low stone wall that matches with the stone on the house. And currently there's a gate right here that leads down to the basement steps. They prefer to move the gate over to this location so they can have stepping stones that lead out to the lawn area. So there's very minimal regrading that would happen. We would have to move some plants for this to occur. There's a birch tree right here that's getting kind of large already. They like to move it while they still can, possibly over to this portion of the property. There's also a birch tree right here that will be in the way of the spa and the turf area, and they'd like to transplant that over to this portion of the property. It has some rhododendrons and azaleas underneath it. You can see it in this photograph. They want to remove the azaleas and rhododendrons. And then there's this other area right here that's got 4 azaleas. This is a photograph of it. It's a very random planting, doesn't look very natural, really looks out of place, and they would like to remove those and just create that as a lawn area. We're proposing to access the site from the driveway in an area that's currently gravel. There would be anti-tracking apron there. We're showing silt fence with hay bales around the work zone. One concern we had was some of the boulders are too big to be removed by the small machine that would be accessing the backyard. So the mason has determined that he would break apart those stones in place so that they'd be small enough that could be carted out by the machine that would be accessing the backyard. So there will be no access around this side of the property. So we feel that it's very minimal impact and would have no adverse effect on the property. Any questions?
Wait, did we miss anything?
Yeah, the thing I did miss, because this is on the coast, we referred it to the state of Connecticut DEP. They sent an email dated March 27th saying that they have reviewed the application for consistency with the policies of the Connecticut Coastal Management Act and have not found any inconsistencies in the proposal. And I think, if I recall, also EPC gave it a blessing as well. Area EPC, because it's right near Holly Pond.
Okay, there's a lot of little things going on here, but in total, I can see why Jeremy referred to us. Ari, your microphone looks open, so why don't you go first?
I guess my only question, and it's really more a concern, and I think it's, I'm sure it's been addressed and other agencies have looked at it. There seems to be a lot of impervious materials and area being added, and it's close to coastal waters, and Darien already is sort of like a high water table flood zone kind of place. So that would be my concern, and I would like that to be addressed. And also, the turf material that's being added, is that impervious? Like, is that considered more like asphalt or more like gravel? Like, I just don't really know enough about the material to really know why it's necessary and what kind of effect it may have on drainage and stormwater management and the water table issues in the area. That sort of is my issue and concern.
I'd like to answer that. There's a detail that we've included that was supplied by Forever Lawn. That
doesn't really answer my question.
Excuse me?
I saw that, but that doesn't really answer my question. Like, I just want to understand, is it more like asphalt or more like grass?
It's turf. It's more like grass. It's an artificial grass. So you can see it's on a gravel base. This is gravel, and there's a sand infill that we've chosen. So this is a permeable surface. So that 30 by 40 red block on the plan is all permeable. There would be no runoff from that.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think I can answer the other question, Kara. When this house was built, which was fairly recently, it was 2016, I believe, they did include water quality, and that's shown on the plan SC1, where they put some infiltrators in the ground solely to deal with the water quality before it gets into Holly Pond. So you can see on this plan SC1, the pipes running from the house to those Caltech systems I just wanted to mention. That's why they included this for the record.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, I just want to make sure that that's sort of been considered given the sensitivity and the importance of the natural resources and the Holly Pond to our town and, the water issues we have here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Jennifer. Jennifer, you good? You're muted, Jen. Hey, no. Okay, we'll come back to you, Jen. How about George Riley's got his mic open?
All good. Thank you.
Hey, Larry Warble,
Yeah, I'm
any
good. Thank you.
questions?
No questions.
Hey, thank you. Tim Rand,
No questions, thanks.
okay.
No questions.
Back to you, Jennifer.
Sorry, no
Jennifer, you
questions.
good? Okay, great. We covered everything? Is there anybody in the public domain that would like to speak to this application? I don't see anybody in the chat right now. Do you see anybody, Fred?
Nothing for me. Nope.
Okay, I have callers 2 and callers 3. Okay. I think we're in good shape. Most of the stuff seems like to me it's pervious surface where water can get through it. I echo Kara's questions. It's these little turf patches of grass or the new craze in town. So you're on the cutting edge. I would entertain a motion to close this hearing. Whose microphone's open? Kara Gately's microphone's open.
Yeah, motion to close.
Second.
Jennifer's gonna second. All those in favor, commissioners? I got Jim, I got Larry, I got, yep. George Riley said yep, and Larry Warble said yeah.
Okay, very close.
Very close, thank you very much. We appreciate that, Alice. And thank you for your patience, yeah. We'll deliberate on this in 2 weeks and get back to it.
Great.
This is mine. I've got a meeting after this meeting at home, so we're gonna keep our foot on the gas. Next up, we have land filling regrading application number 469A, Robert and Jodie Kennedy at 12 Nolen Lane. A proposal to regrade portions of the backyard and perform related site development activities. The 1.24 plus minus acre subject property is located on the west side of Nolen Lane, approximately a quarter mile west of its intersection with Homewood Road, as shown on Assessor map number 8, as lot number 41 in the R1 zone. This is on the back side of Upper Hollow Tree Ridge Road, across the street from the area of
Weber Country Club.
This is the one with the street that's got the Shamrock out. Tonight we have with us who, Jeremy?
Engineer Wayne Devanto is here. It's a regrading project in the back right corner of the property. And the reason it's before the commission is the location of grading is right near the property lines. It's basically, there's a pipe that runs underneath the property and then outlets in this back right corner. The pipe is in need of repair. And so the applicant put together a plan. That plan went to the Environmental Protection Commission. The commission has, EPC has issued a report to planning and zoning dated 4th, saying they heard the application last week and they're going to be issuing a decision next month. The health director was okay with this. This property's on septic, and the health director just said to stake the septic system during construction, the leaking system, to make sure no construction equipment goes on it. And Public Works had an email, which both the commission and Mr. Devanzo has, talking about, but with some of the issues, but Nolen Lane is a private road, and the pipe that runs through this property is a private pipe, not owned by the town. So in this case, they're doing a little regrading in the back corner, some new landscaping, some wetlands enhancement. As Mr. Devanzo described to me earlier, it's less than a truckload of fill. I think the whole project's going to take about a week or less. It's not a very big project at all. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Devanzo, take it from here.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good evening, Wayne Devanzo, Fairfield County Engineering. As was summarized, the application is to rehabilitate a community drainage pipe in the northeast corner of the property that is eroding pretty badly, and it's eroding the soil around it pretty badly. So with the rehabilitation of that and the installation of a plunge pool, the goal is to, reduce that and improve the area and regrade the area with some plantings. There are 5 hemlock trees, which you can see in a row here, that are going to be removed. There is also an issue with the northwest corner of the property being rather damp, and we are proposing to route part of the roof runoff, which currently just runs onto the lawn, basically, to a retention system in the sort of left front corner of the house, and slightly regrade that area and install a curtain drain, which will come around the septic system to the outflow by the plunge pool, and hopefully improve and dry out that area for the homeowners as well. The net runoff is going to reduce because of that retention system from the property. And there are also 2 propane tanks that are currently located in the wetlands, which are going to be relocated and moved, sort of moved to the south and out of the wetlands and screened from the neighbors. And that's pretty much it. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
How did they ever get the tanks in the wetlands in the first?
I think they've been there a long time. And it's not the greatest wetlands in the world. It's a little small wetland pocket in the back right corner. It looks like anybody's back lawn. It really is just a low-lying area in the back of the property that my guess is that pipe has just been putting water back there for years and years. But it's a small, isolated wetland, lowest part of the property.
And EPC signed off on it.
EPC has not. They closed the hearing, but their memo says they're likely to sign off at the meeting in July. They found this to actually be an enhancement to it.
This is the June 4th memo.
Correct.
Got it, Trevor. Okay, great. Okay. It seems kind of an isolated project, so I'm just going to open up to the floor. Ladies first, Jennifer. Any questions for Wayne?
I don't think I have any questions right now for Wayne.
Okay. Let's see. Hey, Wayne, you want to mute your microphone for a minute?
Mute my microphone?
Yeah, please.
Sure.
There you go. Karen Gately. There you are. There's
No question. Yeah.
Thank you. Jim Ryan?
I have no question.
Great.
No
Okay.
questions.
Then we have George Riley,
Nothing, thank you.
Larry Warble.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. It's pretty simple, right? We're going to EPC. Okay. We're going to go to the public domain. I don't see anybody in the chat. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak to this application? And if Fred, if you can keep your eye on it too. No?
Don't see anyone right now.
Okay. Looks pretty straightforward to me. Do we miss anything, Jim?
Nope.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to close from Jim Rand.
I move to close the application.
Great. And who else's microphone's open? Is George or Larry looking for a second? George has got the second. All those in favor? Aye. Yeah.
George.
Okay. There we go, Kara.
Hearing's
And
closed.
okay, thank you, Wayne. Your hearing's closed. We'll get back in a couple weeks.
Yes.
Pretty straightforward. Thank you for your time, sir.
Okay.
All right. Moving right along. My mic's open, right? Yep. Moving right along. Okay, site plan application. We're going into the general meeting. This is deliberation only of the following. Site plan application number 284B as a boy, special permit, land filling, excavation, regrading, and regrading application. Number 477, Town of Darien, Oxford School, 395 Mansfield Avenue. A proposal to demolish the existing school and construct a new school with associated parking, landscaping, stormwater management. on the same property and to perform related site development activities. This is our proposed new school in Darien. It's the first one under my watch that we've watched. And I've been around for a little while. We had 5.5 hours of hearing.
I think we had 3 separate nights, about 5-6 hours of hearings where we talked about a variety of issues. One is certainly the MU zone. You may recall, under the MU zone, the commission needs to make certain findings, make sure that the new MU setbacks could apply. So those are found in the regs that the commission will have to make those specific findings if they wanted to approve it. We spent a lot of time on traffic queuing, the traffic light at the driveway entrance, the fact that DOT approved that traffic light. We talked about parking for both day-to-day operations, special events, landscaping, fencing, new chain link fence, the buffering of, I'll call it the ELP playground. The last meeting dealt with stormwater, drainage, and grading. ARB has approved it, EPC has approved it, and you may recall that it was on schedule to be heard at the ZBA, but the change in the phasing plan eliminated the need to go to the ZBA for a temporary coverage variance. So there's a lot of different issues here, and I'll open up to the commission members.
Okay, I think our 3 public hearings and our preliminary pre-application hearing, which was
Back in February, I believe.
it was an informational hearing. I think that arose and brought out a lot of issues for this school, for us and the general public to understand, acknowledge. I think we also helped the architects and planners and site engineers. I think we also had great peer review people on it. I think we were cognizant to the neighbors and make sure we sought out all the neighbors to see what was going on. As you recall, just to reiterate again, Jim Rand, I think you're recused from this application. Just head and smile. Yep. Here he is. He is nodding his head and smile. What I would like to do is just go around the horn, if you don't mind, and get a general sense of our approval or any questions, and then we can get into some specifics. So I go with the theme of ladies first tonight. Jennifer, you want to start us off?
I guess. I don't think so. I think we've gone through everything. Yeah, I think all of the questions I have, I think, have been addressed, and I'm good right now.
Your thumbs up. Thank you. Carrie Gately, any major questions? Are you a yes or no? We can get into details later if we need to. Go ahead, please.
I mean, I think I've been pretty vocal on this, and I think concerns I had or have been heard, and addressed. I think we did a good job both hearing the experts. I think the peer review was crucial and critical. And I think the collaboration and the back and forth between the peer reviewers and the experts for the building committee and, hired by, the collaborative, I think that was really, really impressive. And I appreciate all the work and thoughtfulness that all the experts put into it and the committee members of both the Oxbridge Building Committee and the P&Z. So I think while there was a lot of issues here, the bottom line is it's a really hard site, and that can't be changed. So I think the thoughtfulness and the deliberative process was really important because it's taxpayer money, it's a hard site, there's neighbors close by, there's traffic issues, parking issues, neighbor issues, stormwater management issues. So I think while it was a painful process and a long process, I think all things considered, it was worthy and worthwhile. And, I think everyone was really thoughtful and, did their work and their due diligence. And I think the experts did too, and all the different committees that were involved. So, I have no other issues at this point to raise.
Okay, I think any specifics, we can make sure that we get them into the resolution. Let's go with Larry Warble. You were a student there, I hear, at one point in your life.
I was not, but three of my children were.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did a lot of our Q&A in real time during all the presentations. So that at this point, there's really no questions left on the table. I think the only thing and it's not an issue or anything, it's just more from my understanding. So the one neighbor who was concerned about the new playground going in, exactly where the old playground was, and there was a question about there's a fence there today that the neighbor believed was the property line, and then turns out the property line is actually a little bit further beyond the fence, I think is right. And
I think you're correct, yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there anything that the town needs to be concerned about if the land where all those trees are and so forth is actually town land, not his land, in terms of maintenance of those trees and things of that nature? Is that something you dive into at all or consider? I'm not sure.
Let me give my quick thought on it, then I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy. This happens every now and again, where people encroach on other people's land. Eventually, it gets caught. When they do get out there in 2 years from now or 18 months from now, will likely stake the property and show where the property line is. I recall, and this is some of the things I think we have to make sure that this gets into the resolution, that particular fence, which is a split rail fence, is going to come down.
Right.
That's on town land. It'll come down and it'll be replaced with a chain link fence. But the trees, those big hemlock trees, may or may not be on town land. But the building committee and the architects said they're not going to touch those trees.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at the end of the day, the property owner who either put in those trees or thinks those trees are his, he's going to maintain them on his side of the fence or of the property. And I think our people are going to cut them up 6 feet to the chain link fence that's going to go underneath it. But they're probably, what they said is they're going to pop out the fence to go around them in various spots. So I think
right.
That came out, that's a good point, Larry. They came out at the last public hearing. And you may recall Amy Samuelson had that revised plan, which talked about putting the fence, in many cases, 2 feet in on the town property, which would allow for some maintenance on the other side. But what they were clear on the plans to put verify in field or field adjusted, which gives them a little leeway while they're installing the fence to avoid tree roots and rocks and some other things that might be in the way, versus saying it's absolutely positively going in this spot. It gives them a little leeway, as Steve said, in probably 2 years from now, to be a little loose with where that fence goes. There's certainly, as they alluded to a little bit, security issues
right.
that they have to be aware of, and that's the reason for the fence.
Maybe let me just crystallize the reason why I want to ask the question.
Sure.
Who owns the trees? If a tree falls down onto the playground, I mean, are we maintaining the trees or is the neighbor maintaining the trees? And I guess is the question if that fence is going to show up. And is that something that this board, is that a commission question? I don't even know.
Yeah, that really doesn't get into a commission question. That gets into an ownership question, which is going to be the Board of Education. There's a lot of trees on people's property that hang over other people's property. I know over at Duhane Properties, the Parks and Rec notified every single tenant that was encroaching, right? That's their job.
The Diller property.
The Diller property.
They're in the process of working on that,
Yeah.
where, if it's tree branch or two. So I think that's something to be sorted out later, Larry, to sort that out. And I think if there's a problem with any of their properties, the Board of Ed Maintenance Facilities Group, Mike Lynch would be in charge of sorting that out.
All right, I'm good to go then.
We just the last follow-up is Jeremy has done this multiple times in over his 20-some year career. I've seen it happen a few times in my career on these things. I just glad we got this on teed up in advance and not have to worry about it 2 years from now. So we're gonna make sure. Okay, George Riley, you're up, sir.
So my two key concerns, one has been storm management, the other traffic flow. I think the storm management system is very impressive, even though it's going to get a lot of flow down that driveway. I think they've got a plan to manage it, and they're going to be able to retain a huge amount of it, 150,000 gallons, I think it is, something like that, which I gather is a huge amount and can then be let out at a reasonable pace. So I would think that downhill neighbors should be at ease about that. And as to traffic, it's hard for me to really get the concept on these maps that these buses can go around those hook turns and all that sort of thing and have parking across from them of parents' cars, etc. But I'm a believer. There are pros who've gone through that, and so I don't doubt it. I know I was involved in the development of Tokenique School, and we thought we had a parking spot for everybody, and of course we don't, because all day long there's parking by parents all over the place. And so it goes, and I don't think we can do anything about that. That's what grass fields are for, I guess, at certain times of the day. So let it be. I have no concerns about those things. I think it's a very intelligent plan, and I'm all for it.
Make sure we highlight those items in there.
Yeah,
did you have any other checklists that you wanted to go through?
No, that pretty much covered. The resolution will try to cover all these topics. And so we'll try to have something ready maybe at our next meeting on the 23rd.
I would venture to guess we're going to go through this draft resolution over 2 meetings.
We'll see how it turns out.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We're going to instruct Jeremy and his team to draft a positive resolution for the Mansfield new school at Mansfield. Moving on. The next item up is landfilling excavation and regrading application number 476, David Wang, 26 Lee Warden Lane. This is what we had last week. It's a new house, excuse me, on Lee Warden Lane. It is looks like an abandoned house to me today. It looks like an abandoned house to me today, which Jeremy says it is, and I believe him. There's no stormwater management on this site at all today. The applicant is putting in a significant stormwater management system. Going to build a nice house to effectively, I mean, I put the words in his mouth and said it, that they're going to effectively clear cut the site for the most part and re-landscaping it. There's a whole bunch of trees that are going in. There's a whole bunch of bushes that are going in. There's a whole bunch of grasses that are going in. A new driveway is going in. It looks like it's going to be a huge upgrade for the neighborhood. But let's go around the horn and see anybody's concerns, questions, comments, and go from there. Kara Gately, your light just came on. You go first.
No, I think it sounds like a big improvement. I know there's a lot of concerns, but I feel like they were very receptive and thoughtful to hearing neighbors' concerns and hired the right experts, and I think listened to the staff and everyone's comments. So I have no other concerns or comments at this point.
Great, thank you. I think the two neighbors were positive about it. One across the street had a lot of questions. You had a question, sir? Next lady up, Jennifer, your light is on.
Yep, I agree. I think it was good that there was, collaboration on that, and it is an improvement. So I'm excited for that.
Good. Larry Warble?
Yeah, looking forward to the town getting a nicer new house.
George Riley?
It looks good to me too. I do hope the town will keep an eye on those catch basins that are on Lee Warden Lane in that circle area. But at this point, no reason to be concerned about it. So all good.
Thank you, sir.
Tim Rand is back.
Tim Rand is back. You're back in play, Jim.
I am back. I have no questions.
Fantastic. All right, so we will instruct Jeremy and his team to draft a positive resolution on the new house that's proposed for 26 Homewood Lane.
Beautiful.
Okay, we're doing good on time. Just let's tell Bob Naslin that we're doing good on time. We've done 6 things in 1 hour. We're gonna move back into the public hearing. We're gonna pick up on 34 Old Kings Highway that we opened last week. It's a continuation of public hearing regarding proposed amendments to the zoning, Darien zoning regulations, COZR number 2,
Yes, babe.
2020. Business site plan application number 308, special permit application number 312, Baywater 34 OKHS LLC, 34 Old Kings Highway South. Do you mind if I read this? Is that okay? Just to refresh everybody's memory?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm just going to read this to refresh everybody's memory while we're seeing it. Proposal to revise and clarify the noted discrepancies between the front and rear building lines to reflect decisions made by the planning and zoning commissions in 1961 and 1979 respectively regarding the same. Modifying Appendix A of the regulations, building line restrictions, and to modify Section 1057 of the zoning regulations relative to dedicated public space area. Proposal to raise the existing commercial building on the site and to construct a new 5,624 plus or minus square foot 2-story office building with a 1,320 plus or minus square foot rooftop deck. Reconfigure the parking area on the rear of the site and construct a new public plaza area. Construct a new stormwater management system. Allow office uses on the first floor of the new building and perform related site development activities. This subject property is located on the west side of Old Highway, 150 feet north of its intersection of Corbin Drive, and is shown on Assessor's map number 72 as lot 29 in the CBD zone. The public hearing was opened last week on June 2nd. As you recall, that's one of Jeremy's lines. This is a small house turned into offices on Old Kings Highway to 1020 and some other properties that are in the Corbin district. When we last left this, and I'm going to turn it over to Bob Maslin and Jeremy in a second, at our last meeting on this application, I don't think we really got into the parking. I don't think we really got into the stormwater management system. There is a new plan that was presented on the screen with regard to the public park or public plaza, I'm sorry, which is on the, I'm going to call it the front of the building, but it's on the Old Kings Highway side, which is maybe the back of the building. And ARB has reviewed the application, and I think we might have a letter.
Right, Fred, right before the meeting, emailed to the commission members the ARB letter dated June 1st, which is the results of their meeting on May 27th. So commission members, you have that in your email. It's part of the record.
Do we have that? I'm sorry.
It was just emailed out to you prior to the meeting.
Come on, not again.
Yeah, that's our fault.
I thought I saw it before, earlier today.
You might have seen it before, George. It's funny, Steve and I were discussing it, and we thought it might have gone out last week, so I had Fred send it out prior
We
to
got
the meeting.
3 emails from Fred during the day, and now there's.
I think I had it on Friday. I think.
You might have had it in your packets.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have it in my packet.
Okay. And then the last thing we want to clarify is the front yard question that they have, and then the rear yard, backyard question. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Maslin or Attorney Maslin and his team, and you can have at it.
Wait.
Thank you.
7? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Hey, Karen.
I'm gonna need a moment. I know you want him to proceed, but we received a letter at 8:07 tonight. So can we have a moment before Fred, Attorney Maslin starts to maybe review that material?
Of course.
Or does, Attorney, obviously, Attorney Maslin can start, but I'm going to be reviewing that letter, so I won't be fully focused. So it's
I'm looking at Bob Maslin's letter of June 4 to Jeremy with a number of attachments, including the June 1, 2020 letter of the Architectural Review Board. So that's what I was looking at earlier.
It's here.
PowerPoint is that on? 'Cause I looked through that. I didn't see that. Wait, where is that?
Just
It's
before the elongated pages.
And this is how we label things. Like, can we label things properly? This is like, anyway, go on. Just proceed. I'll just review as he talks. I don't want to slow anything down. But
It's a page and a half. I think it'd take you a minute.
Okay.
I shouldn't have to like keep fighting and like argue and like trying to find documents
It actually,
provided and like labeled.
right.
I'm
I
the computer, and like I did that for every person I ever up here before.
Yeah, I had him send it a second time. It's already in our packet, so we have it both ways. One that was left at your house and one that's
It's not in my packet at my house. No, it was not.
well, it's in mine.
It wasn't in mine.
Bob Maslin.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Maslin. I'm the attorney for the applicant here. Our team is here, David Genovese and Kate Perez from Baywater Properties, Colin Grothier from Bruce Binefield Architects. John Block is somewhere in there. I don't think he has video. And Dennis Dale, the landscape architect, is here. We almost made it through our presentation last time. There were a few things that we didn't get to. Drainage is one of them, and we kind of spent about 3 seconds on parking, so we didn't really get into any of the really minute details about that. The last session of the hearing was Tuesday. On Thursday morning, I delivered to the box at Town Hall hard copies of all of the updated plans that we had slides of during the session last Tuesday, along with a hard copy of the entire PowerPoint presentation. And I also submitted the June 4th letter that somebody just mentioned, and it does a few things. There's a summary of the plan revisions that we talked about on Tuesday, and it addresses a couple of new questions that the commission raised about the front and rear building lines and the issue about lot width and other properties that may be applicable to in the CBD. And I have a couple of paragraphs on the proposed public plaza and also the status of the ARB application. I would just mention that we've been submitting things as in as timely a manner as we could. What happened with the ARB approval was apparently it was finished, signed, and mailed to us last Monday, a week ago yesterday, and it was en route to us. We didn't get it until after Tuesday's meeting. It's in the packets that I submitted Thursday morning. So we have now updated the PowerPoint by just adding a couple of slides that are directly from the submission that I made Thursday, so there's nothing new here. I've changed the cover sheet to reflect the updated date of this particular presentation, which is June 9th today, and I've included the 2 new slides toward the back in a section that's got a cover slide on it for the new slides. And the new slides have to do with the front and rear building line clarifications that we're asking for. I thought I would start, Mr. Chairman, with by finishing up drainage, and we'll get to the parking slides. That's okay. The drainage is up. Somebody got an echo. The drainage comes up comes up. Oh boy, somebody's got their mic open. But anyhow, what I've put in front of or on the screen here is the site grading, drainage, and utility plan. And the drainage is very simple. John Block is here if you have any questions. But basically, the stormwater is going to be directed into infiltrators in the front of the actually the portion of the property between the building and Old Kings Highway South for treatment, and then the overflow is going to be piped directly into the already approved drainage system for the Corbin project. And it's that simple. We're asking for a waiver of the fresh meadow approach on drainage because we're in the lower 1/3 of the watershed, and that's addressed more fully in stormwater management or engineering plans. I think if you have questions for John on the drainage, maybe we can address those before we move on. Anybody?
That'd be great, Bob. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's go to, I don't personally see, there's John Black.
Yeah, his name is here. His picture's not. I don't think he's got a video.
Yep, I got it. He doesn't show his picture. Jennifer Leahy, would you have any questions relative to the drainage? We typically do waive, or we're not typically, we have waived the fresh meadow approach numerous times for sites such as this.
Right, in this case, Bob, you're across the street from the actual Goodwise River. So they are dealing with some, but not to the extent that a normal fresh meadow approach.
I'm good.
Right. Yeah, there is some treatment, more treatment across the street. So it's not a complete fresh meadow, non-fresh meadow approach, I guess. So I think that's what you're saying, Jeremy.
Yep.
Great. Thank you, Jen. I heard you say that you're good. Let me flip over to Carrie Gately. Carrie Gately, are you ready yet, or you want to go?
When have we granted waivers to the fresh meadow approach? Because like we just finished the Oxbridge building, we're like applying fresh meadow approach was pretty much an issue. So when have we when have we granted waivers to that approach?
I can address that simply, Steve, if that's okay.
Sure, Bob. Go ahead.
The reason for the fresh meadow approach is to require new developments where there's a demolition of an existing building to use that as an opportunity to design a drainage system that never existed on the site before. So that's an improvement. On the lower 1/3 of the watershed, the issue there is if you store stormwater on site and release it later during a storm event, you're adding to a stormwater or flooding problem. It's better for engineering reasons and overall best practices to treat the water, the first flush, and then get it off the site so it's down into the, in this case, down Goodwives River into Gorham's Pond, into the Long Island Sound before the major onslaught of water from upstream of the lower third of the watershed. So there's an engineering reason for waiving it in the lower 1/3 of the watershed. The other ones that are upstream farther, it's more critical to manage it on site.
And you
John,
think
you want to add to that?
Property, that issue, that I agree with what you just said. That sounds like a very salient point. And you think waiving it, do we waive it for all the properties in the Corbin district or all the properties in the CBD or just this one property?
We waived it for Shake Shack.
Okay, so 2 in the CBD?
That was so small.
No,
You have to justify it. You know, it's not a total waiver where you don't have to do any stormwater management. There's always going to be at least a desire or consideration for treatment of the first flush. And then once you're dealing with clean stormwater runoff, that's the waiver part. But it does go through a review process. It's not an automatic waiver.
Hey, Bob, can we have
Yes.
John Block just chime in, please?
John,
Sure, can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
you're on, John.
Okay, yeah, in our engineering report.
Just John, just state your name and credentials for the record.
I'm John Block, principal of Tie and Bond and the civil engineer for the project. In our engineering report we submitted, we went through the 3 criteria required to be exempt from the fresh meadow evaluation. And the first criteria is the size or location of the site. And the project site is 0.177 acres. And the overall watershed of the Goodwise River is 1,275 acres. So that's 0.0001% of the watershed. It's also located in the lower 14% of the watershed. So as the drainage manual states, in the lower portions of the watershed, fresh meadow should be evaluated and is not necessarily required, and we don't think it is. The second criteria is what's unique about the existing property or the existing site. The existing site discharges runoff with no treatment. The existing site is impervious, so it goes untreated into the old Kings Highway drainage system and discharges to the Goodwise River untreated. What we're proposing is to put in a water quality system that meets the water quality volume of the Connecticut Deep and the Darien Stormwater Design Manual, and where that consists of collecting runoff from the roof and the deck and discharging into an infiltration system composed of 24-inch perforated diameter pipes in a crushed stone envelope with a filter fabric. So we meet all the requirements of the Town of Darien Drainage Manual, the Connecticut DOT Drainage Manual, as well as the Connecticut Deep Water Quality Manual. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I have no questions, John. John and Attorney Maslin, that was very, very helpful, and it clarified a lot of my questions and concerns. Thank you.
Thanks, Kara. Jennifer, any questions about drainage at this point? Right now, there is no drainage system on the site at all. And with this new development, we're going to have a drainage system, which is on the old Kings Highway frontage. Jen looks like she's okay. Larry Warble, any questions on this? Nope.
No questions.
George Riley? George, nod your head and smile.
I must be, was there something that flows from 34 past 36 and through the, the corner of Corbin and Old King South? Was that, there was no water flow there? Am I, John?
Runoff from the site discharges into Old Kings Highway and then drains southerly in a drainage pipe, and then crosses Old Kings into 33 Old Kings Highway, where under the Corbin project, we're building a water quality pond. So we're providing our own site treatment, and it's discharge into the town drainage system, which is also treated by the Corbin water quality pond on 33 Old Kings Highway.
Okay, I must have been confused, and I understand. Thank you.
I think, if I may add, it's David Genovese from Baywater. Commissioner Riley, I think you could be thinking about the open culvert that runs along 36 Old Kings Highway South, where its property line meets the Tibbetts building and the Wyckoff building. And you can actually see
I'm imagining something there.
yeah,
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
There's an open culvert there, and as part of the Corbin project, we worked with the town, the DEP, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the EPA to relocate that and underground it and improve it.
I see. And 34 is not going to feed into that.
That's on the other side of 36.
I see. Okay. Thank you. Good.
Then it leaves Jim Rand. Any questions, Jim?
I have nothing. No, thank you.
Okay, Bob, we're good with that piece. Want to move on to your next piece?
Okay, municipal parking. These are
Perfect.
slides that we didn't get to last week. The Center Street parking lot, at least this end of it, includes parking easements in favor of the town. And I'll have a map that shows these things. I just want to give the list first. Shared parking easements in favor of the town on portions of the lot that are behind 1014 and 1020 Post Road. Now, you're wondering what 1014 is. That's the address of the restaurant 1020, believe it or not. And then on the opposite side, behind 36 and 34 Old Kings Highway South, there's an area or a portion of the lot that is covered by a shared parking agreement for municipal parking with the town. So there's a combination of easements on one side and shared parking on the other. Why is it that way? It's because when Baywater developed the 1020 project, we adjusted the rear building line to reflect some unique characteristics of the existing site at the time, and we redrew the rear building line. And at the same time, a portion of the project site was involved in a remediation under DEP jurisdiction. And I guess collectively with the commission and the town, decided that it would be much better if the town accepted the parking easement rather than actually fee ownership of that land that was subject to the DEP open file. And so we modified the agreement, or your commission modified the agreement at the time to allow us to satisfy the rear building line requirement by way of that easement. The shared parking agreements are shared parking agreements because at that time they were in different ownership, and there was no development underway that would have triggered the rear building line requirement. So the way that was resolved was by way of shared parking agreements, which basically function the same way as the easement does, because the town has the same access to those parking spaces as they do in the easement area. Access to the Center Street lot, there are 3 different access points. One-way driveway across 1006, which is First County Bank. There's a one-way driveway in. That's alongside 1020 Post, the restaurant, into the parking lot. The next one is a 2-way access across 30 Old Kings Highway South, and that's the one that runs alongside our 34 Old Kings Highway site. That is an easement on land that's owned by 30 Old Kings Highway South, and you'll see a map later that shows what the configuration was when that was created. And then obviously from Center Street across the remainder of the lot, there's 2-way access. What we're proposing here is a portion of 34 Old Kings Highway South to be conveyed in the same easement form as the easement behind 1014 and 1020. And here is a map or an aerial view showing this whole combination here. 1020 is here, and this is the easement area. This building is 36 Old Kings Highway South. This is the old house on 34. This area right here is all shared parking agreement, including a little portion down into the 34 site. We are proposing in this application to take this triangle here and convert that from shared parking agreement area to easement in the same way that this portion is behind 1020. The parking lot behind 1006, which is First County Bank here, is still private, although I think there's some sharing there available. The driveway comes in that I just mentioned, that one way comes in. You can either turn left to go behind the bank or even further down the one way out through the drive-in window, or you can take this right and go into the parking lot behind 1020. Over here on 30, behind 30 is a private parking lot for 30 Old Kings Highway South. And the rest of this is the Center Street lot, except for this area here behind the church. Any questions on this map? I guess not. All right.
You got a lot going on that map, Bob.
I know. You want me to wait and see if the questions, or is it?
Let me ask around. I mean, I get it, and it's you know, it's kind of fictitious. All those lines are kind of fake because everyone plays together, but they do exist for ownership. Let's go relative to this parking. Let's go ladies first. Jennifer Leahy. Her light is off. So
I'm here. Sorry. I just can't see right now. My internet connection keeps cutting out. I'm okay.
It's one of the pages in your packet after Center Street.
No, I have it. I'm okay. I'm okay with this.
It's slide 44 if you have the paper one in front of you.
Yeah, it's all good.
Karen?
I guess my only question would kind of be like what Mr. Rand has echoed at numerous meetings previously was, what is the effect, you know, if we're making these changes for this one property, but what is the effect and the impact and precedentially on other similarly situated properties within the district? And like, there's a lot going on here, and I just, in and of itself, it seems great and fine, but we know from, you know, recent applications, parking is a definite issue, and I just am not comfortable. I mean, I'm comfortable, this all seems great, but what's the precedential effect on other shared parking agreements with odd figured lots that may not meet width and rear and front lot requirements? Like, are we doing something here where we're really changing a zoning regulation or something that we're not really cognizant or fully thinking through that we're doing? And that's sort of my concern. And it's not really specific necessarily to this. It's just my overall concern in general when we do things ad hoc like this.
Bob, can I just try to give the quickest kind of background to how I think we got here, which I think is helpful? So it's David Genovese from Baywater. Commissioner Gately, so when we showed up to develop 1020 Post Road, there was the Center Street lot, and there was, I think it began, or it was written in like the 60s, there was this rear building line concept that basically said, if you gave the land from the building lot line back into a municipal parking lot and gave the town a property right or actual property, your building would become exempt from the parking regulations. And that's how, for example, the building where Bodega is built was, because where Bodega is an upper crust bakery, there's literally no property owned by that building. The landowner back in the 50s or 60s gave the rear lot to the town in exchange, which allowed the town to create an extension to the Center Street lot. The same thing happened with the Black Goose Grill, which enabled them to build the restaurant there. And when we, as Attorney Maslin was saying, when we showed up with 1020 Post Road, we actually were not, the property at 1020 Post Road was not, the initial property wasn't touching the Center Street lot. So we negotiated a shared parking agreement with the owner of 36 Old Kings Highway South, which was not us back then. And then we gave the town an easement, a right of use. And we actually were the ones that paid for the expansion of and reconfiguration of that whole area of the Center Street parking lot. And we gave to the town a right of use. And Bob will correct me if I'm misstating this in any way, but as I understand it as a layperson, we basically gave the town a right of use of our parking, all of our parking at 36 Old Kings Highway and 1020, because we subsequently bought 36 Old Kings Highway South on nights and weekends, which enabled all of that parking to be used by patrons of the Goose, patrons of Bodega, patrons of any business in town. And on the weekends, it's wide open and actually it's wide open and unrestricted use by the town. So we gave the town, for so long as that building at 1020 exists, a right to use our property on nights and weekends. And that was a little bit of my point in the discussion of the Darien Playhouse building, because we actually gave the town a property right that had significant value that benefited other buildings, whereas some of these other shared parking agreements, that nothing's really ever been conveyed to the town. There's very few examples. So here you have a more complicated situation because you've got this strange triangular shaped lot, which is 34 Old Kings Highway South. Unto itself, it really doesn't have any value. If we just gave to the town an easement or gave the town property, that triangle would have no value. But this is also part of a grander plan with the Corbin district, and this drawing shows you how the parking is currently configured, but as part of the Corbin district approval, and I think we have the slide, we can show it also. When we build the first 3 buildings as part of the project later this year, the plan is to reconfigure this parking lot in a configuration that was already approved by the P&Z Commission in the context of the Corbin project. And so you straighten it out and you actually maximize the use. And I think in the end, we create an additional 4 parking spaces, as a result of the reconfiguration, which we're paying for. So I don't know if that helped or hurt your understanding, but there's a lot of history. There's like 50 years or 60 years of history in this slide.
Can I add to that? You asked about precedential effects of this.
Yes,
The building lines are covered in the appendix to the zoning regs.
thank you.
All right, and they go back to 1925, 95 years
Yes,
since the very beginning of zoning in Darien. And what is listed in the appendix are the current versions by references to maps and general descriptions. And what's happened over time, as David mentioned, in this Center Street lot, there were areas that were conveyed over to the town. For example, I'll show you a slide in a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
This area right here behind the 30 Old Kings Highway building, that land was conveyed in around 1980 or 81. And that became part of municipal parking. And it extended farther down. There are areas over here behind Bodega that were conveyed over to the town. If you go over to Tokenique Road, where places like the Meatball Company, there's an area of land behind it that was given over to the town. I forgot the new name of it, but it's Backstreets. Where Backstreets was, there's an area behind that the town owns. And that became either Center Street, the center part of the lot, part of the road, or just part of the public sidewalk. And it was all done for public use. There are other places in the downtown area. For example, we created one at Grove Street where the developer of the Grove Street Plaza, and that's the one with the fountain in it, we created a rear building line, built municipal parking, and then turned it over to the town. And that parking is adjacent to the municipal lot that leads you to the railroad station. So these rear building lines have been in existence and have been functioning pretty well since 1925.
That's not really presidential. Like, I'm sort of more, and I appreciate the history. And I think this, both like all the really important history and sort of background information and like research that you and David have done and provided, it's actually really helpful. But it sort of more underlies the concern of it's still this property by property ad hoc issue, which, you know, when we were talking about the cinema was of a concern. And so I'm just wondering if we do this for this little sliver of a property, and like, by the way, I get it. This is an unusable, really hard to develop property. So like, I'm not against developing. I'm not against, in theory, being flexible to develop a property that should be developed. And that's within the town plan of conservation and development. I just am concerned with, are we doing something that we don't know the unintended consequences of the approval on other properties, because we don't have a full scope of what other properties may be impacted by this and be able to do the same thing. That's my sort of issue.
I understand.
I'm not trying to like cause a problem. That's my concern.
No, I understand your concern. And I guess what I would say is where I think this is very different. I think that, you know, in the 20s, I misspoke. I thought it was in the 50s. In the 20s, someone wrote this building lot line or this rear building line concept. And it really was, I have a slide that I showed when we did the Corbin project originally. It was designed and developed, or maybe we presented it for 1020. It was meant to encourage developers, property owners to contribute land to the town and to create additional municipal parking. And I would say that I think, you know, the fact is it worked. Goose did it. The original owner of the Bodega building did it. We did it for 1020. I think the thrift shop gifted land to the town. And then we did it at 1020 and 36. And I guess I would say the difference too here is that this actually takes really inefficient, unusable property, enables us, because we own 1020 and 36 Old Kings Highway, and through the Corbin project, we'll soon, you know, control the development of those 3 properties along Corbin Drive. It enables us to really reconfigure this and make it much more efficient. Bob, do you have the slide handy that shows the reconfigured lot? So just look at that image right now at what you see. And then let's go, if we could, to the slide showing the reconfigured lot, because that may also make it a little more clear.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
That's the next one, which is 90 spaces before and 94 spaces after.
Yeah.
Well, this is existing.
Yep. And let's show where it goes. Yep.
And this is reconfigured.
That's existing.
No, this is reconfigured.
That's reconfigured.
That's existing.
Out.
Yep.
Okay, let's just step back for this for a moment.
Okay.
This lot, this configuration in blue, I guess that's the color, on slide 45, is kind of an oddball shape because when this was done, the property line ran along the stream, the open water course along in here, generally. The Tibbetts building is down here at the corner of Old Kings Highway South and Corbin. And then there's another little building here, and then the gas station's up here on the other corner. These 3 buildings are now part of the Corbin project, which allows the developer to reconfigure the municipal lot and make it a much more regular shaped, rectangular portion of the Center Street parking lot. And the developer is doing this at their own expense. You don't see this going on as much in private shared parking agreements where the town has no control over the parking. This is all going to be managed by the town, subject to these easements and shared parking agreements. And we're going to end up working all that out. The count in this blue area is 94 spaces. So you're picking up 4 spaces, but you're also picking up a much better layout as far as parking lots goes. And
developable property in that look, yeah.
And there's a driveway here to access it from Corbin, another driveway over here to access it from Corbin. So this is a vast improvement, I would think. I would hope the commission agrees.
Well, I would also add.
This is a project that is very beneficial for the town, I think.
Yeah.
I would just also add that these driveways from Corbin Drive into the lot were contemplated by many town plans and conservation and development over decades and decades. But it wasn't until we were able to, pull the concept of the Corbin project together that we're able to actually deliver that to the town. And the idea there, which I don't think a lot of people really focused on, but I think it's one of the greatest benefits of the project is you're going to get people off the post road in their cars, and they'll be able to come through Corbin District across Corbin Drive and never hit the post road. So someone who lives in Tokenique could get, to all of this without ever even hitting the post road, or if they live on Locust Hill or, Andrews Drive, et cetera, Old Kings Highway South.
This was
David, I've been asking you for years to get these driveways in. I got it. I'm sorry, Kara, I cut you off.
No, see, that was fine. This was very, very, very helpful. This really clarified things for me and kind of.
We're not trying to get something for nothing here.
It's complicated. It's complicated.
No, it is, and I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's move on.
And
Hold on one second, Bob.
Just to give you an idea of how this stuff has been working over the years, back in the 60s, there was a layout on a map that had a 50-foot wide, I think it's 50 feet, strip right here that was subject to a condition in the land records, in the chain of title, that said if the town built a municipal lot here, the town could take this, or these landowners would be required to convey this over to the town to provide driveway access to the municipal parking. Well, what we're doing here is moving this down to here and then building another one over here. So these things go through kind of an evolution over the years. And this particular layout has been in the works probably since the 60s, and it's finally coming to fruition, albeit slightly modified. But that's how this works, and it's a long-term planning goal. And as you look at larger projects that come before you, you'll see some of this, and you'll get to put your planning hat on in addition to just zoning. So that's the parking. And this, I wanted to just, oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Bob. Jim Rand, any questions relative to parking?
Well, I guess, no, I don't have any questions about the parking. But I'm listening to the conversation, and while I take what Bob is saying and what David is saying, it sounds like we're arguing about whether this is a good idea or not. I think it's an excellent idea. My only question is, what's the best way of doing it? Is the best way of doing it to modify section 1057 or and suffer the possible difficulties that may cause with another property 10 or 15 years in the future, or if we can do it, just to give the applicant a pass on 1057 as an example. I mean, I'm okay either way, but I'm not a lawyer and I don't understand this. So
I don't think we can. Wouldn't that require a variance? I mean,
let me just, I'll address that, because I think there might be a little bit of a, I don't want to say misunderstanding, but the change to 1057, and I have to get down, I have to find the slide now. The change to 1057 does this. When you convey land behind the rear building line, you exempt yourself from rear setbacks and off-street parking. The problem is I could find 3 lots in addition to this one, where there is kind of an effect that I don't think was intended when they created 1057. And that is the regulations require that the building be located in a portion of the lot that's at least the minimum width. Well, the minimum width is 40 feet. It's right here. And if we're not allowed to waive that in exchange for donating land to the town for parking, you lose this entire area here as building envelope, when the intent was to allow people to build right up to the line and thereby exempt them from the rear setback. So it's
Bob,
unique to this. There are 3 other properties that I mentioned in my letter down along Tokenique Road. They're next door to each other. The red schoolhouse is one of them, and then there's 2 next door.
So what you're saying is that my naive suggestion of giving the applicant a pass on 1057 doesn't work.
Well, we're asking to have the regulation amended to allow construction in this area in exchange for donating land. And that's really what
That's
it
the
is.
best way to
Call
do
it, give it a pass, you call it a pass, but when those other 3 properties, if they're ever redeveloped, they're going to end up with the same problem.
And the land, just to be clear, Bob, the land donation is the front plaza?
No, it's, well, oops. What did I?
Really?
My fat finger over here lost, here it is. Okay. Well, it's both. The front plaza here, here I go again. The front plaza is this area here, and this is a different program. This donation of a public plaza allows you 2.5 times the area for a 3rd level. That's different, completely different from the rear building line.
Okay, so the
concept. Okay.
The rear building line, we're getting the top piece of the triangle and an easement.
Correct.
Right, which you can see on the 2 different parking plans, which is the 90 versus the 94.
Right. And
Right,
and the benefit, the quid pro quo, I guess you could call it, it's that for the ability to build in this area, which everybody else who's donated land has a right to do.
Understood.
Okay. This
Okay.
public plaza in front has to do with building height. It's an additional square footage.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that next, or
Yes.
after another piece of this. All right,
Okay.
let's just
All
ask
right.
Larry Warble and George Riley if there are any questions dropped into this.
And the only other thing I want to mention on this parking before I go on to another topic is these are here just to put in the record. This is the existing parking map that was done back in 2008 or so, or 6, whenever we did the 1020 project. And then the full set of each of these declaration of easements and the shared parking agreement, they're recorded on the land records. You have full hard copies of them if you want to read through them. And the easement is basically going to be modified to include the triangle. And obviously the shared parking is going to be modified to convert that over. All right. So that's the parking.
But let me, hold on, Bob. Hold on, Bob. Larry Warble, any questions relative to this?
No questions. I'm just really glad we didn't try doing this last week at midnight.
Me too.
Oh my.
George Riley, you're up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine for now.
And Jen
David,
Leahy, did I ask?
I'm good.
Jen, did I ask? Okay.
I'm good.
Got it.
Thank
Thank you. So Bob, relative to the parking for this building, we're not really having a specific dedicated number because it's all part of the shared agreement.
Correct. And
So
easement.
because if it was like 3 per 1,000, this building should have 17 parking spaces, and it's part of the pool for the 90 or 94 that's going to be on the lot.
Well, plus the whole rest of the Center Street lot is, because it's all one municipal lot.
Okay, got it.
And the other big difference is it is actually also under common ownership. Between 1020 and, I mean, they're technically different LLCs, but it's the same partners in all the three buildings.
And people have control.
Thank you, David, for raising that, because I think that makes it a bit different, right, than
Yeah, I can only get mad at myself.
Vis-a-vis the theater, where they weren't under common ownership, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because I was like okay, thank you.
Okay.
We're done with parking and lot easements and whatnot.
Okay, now over to my letter. I'm not going to dwell on these changes. The letter from June 4th describes the changes that were made in the first section entitled Summary of Plan Revisions. And that went through the changes. And the reason for the timing of the submission was we needed to get the ARB approval and then get all the rest of the plans updated to reflect the ARB approval. Otherwise, you'd have 2 or 3 sets and it would be much more confusing. Now, Commission questions. Now, on the clarification of the, here we go, slides in. There are 2 slides here that we added. This is the clarification of the rear building line. And what I've done is quite a bit of research, and I managed to talk my way into the town clerk's office to dig into the land records. And I'll tell you, I have a map here that our surveyor did, and I'll just point out what we are looking for. And that is, oops, this has got a hairpin trigger here. All right, and there we go again. Okay. The rear building line, when it was first created, was measured 130 feet off the street line of Old Kings Highway South. And I showed that and went through it last week. In 1979, as 30 was about to be developed, at the same time, there was a consideration of putting this side of Old Kings Highway South into the CBD, Central Business District. At the time, it was a different kind of office zone, and the commission was considering moving it into the CBD. But the fear was, or maybe the concern was, that if they made it the Central Business District, there's no front setback. And nothing on this street has a 0 front setback. The buildings across the street are all in the office zone, and they all have front setbacks. So in order to address the setback issue, the commission established a front building line that was measured 100 feet forward of the rear building line. Well, if you measured it from the street line that was shown on the 1961 map, you would have the rear building line right here, which is an extension of the rear wall of the building at 36. And then when you measure 100 feet forward, you are at an extension of the wall along Old Kings Highway from 36. Okay? And that's because this little strip here was included in 36 and 34 and all the rest of these properties in 1961 on the original map. But along comes Rocky Singari in 1979, and he assembles these lots and decides he's going to build a building, but his map shows the street line along here, and it's offset by about 9 or 10 feet from the front boundary that we show down here. So this is their front boundary, and that's the line that's shown on this map here. So when you measure from this line back,
I apologize to interrupt. It says 8.6 feet, right? You said
On
9.
one side, but it changes a little bit. But yeah, 8.55, 8.6. And then,
Okay.
well, I'll go right back to it then here. Hold on. That's here.
Correct.
It's 7 something, and over here it's a different number. And then it changes as you go up farther. All right. Now, so Rocky's map is the offset number. So you measure 130 feet and you get to here. And this line comes down to here. And this is the rear building line. But it's the rear building line measured from the offset. And then when you measure 100 feet forward, you come out about here. Okay. And what that leaves you is a rear building line offset here, and it's offset by this much. And a front building line offset that's offset by this much. We think that the better approach on this, because these two properties, 34 and 36, are right next to each other, and there's a driveway that the town will probably never give up between 34 and 30. The better way to develop 34 is to have this front wall in line with the new front wall, and the same for the rear, except that we do have some space in there. But primarily the front wall would be pretty much in line with the front wall at 36. Then leave the rear and front building lines across 30 alone. Why? Because this line was the basis for the conveyance of these three parcels to the town to create municipal parking. These 3 parcels here that's labeled parcel A, that's part of the municipal lot, Center Street lot. And the front of the building on this front portion is about here, 30 feet back from this line. So to answer your question, should we do this for the whole block or just for this site? The answer is just for this site, for 34. Kind of a long-winded answer, but I hope everybody understands and follows.
But so now, if you do it for 34, you're going to be consistent with Rocky Singari for what's now known as 30.
It would be consistent because you're leaving this offset in place here and here. And there's a gap here that the town has the driveway. So there's a gap here.
Understood.
So it kind of blends in and all of that.
Got it. I got you. I got you now. Okay, Carrie, you're chomping at the bit. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to clarify because I'm like, this is a lot. This is like a lot of stuff going on here. So for 1057, we want to do it for the entire zone, correct? But for the rear and front building lines, just for this site. Yes? Okay, thank you. That was my question. And I get it.
Yep.
I get all the rationale. I mean, there's like
Just the unique background and all that. Yes.
And there's deep planning. Like, there's a lot here. So I'm not like throwing shit questioning. I just want a clarification so I'm clear for like my thought.
I try to be clear, and sometimes I am, and sometimes I'm not clear.
You were very clear. I just need to like sometimes for myself, just before I like say something in my notes, make sure I'm clear.
Okay.
Yeah, but your mic's open.
So, Mr. Maslin, in the front area that will be a park-like area, are you using the offset area?
Yes, I think I understand your question.
That notch area that is made up of 8 feet or 7 feet or whatever it is, which is that's not currently paved as part of Old Kings Highway South, I gather, right?
Correct. Oh, correct. Right. That's
okay. So that can be part of the park.
Roughly in this general area here, which is, I guess, right along in here, I think is the boundary. But
So the offset area is actually just on a map. It's not on the road.
correct.
It's
Right.
not on the road. It is not,
Right.
I went out there again, it's not on the road.
This offset area is not part of the road. That's the whole point.
Okay, thanks.
If you were gonna do that today, you would measure the building, you'd measure the setback line from the center line of the street. That's what they do today, but, you know, this
No.
is all, it was done a long time ago, but it's different.
You would do that
I'm good.
if you would do that if the width of the right of way is less than 50 feet. The right of way, the surveyor told me the right of way here is 52 feet wide. So you would measure it from the street
Right,
boundary.
most other towns, it goes from the center of the street in new towns, but this is, you know, we're an older town. Larry Warble, any questions on this point? Larry, you good?
Yeah, that was a lot to take in, but yeah, I think I've got it. Thank you, though.
Jen Leahy?
I'm good.
Okay. And now, Bob, you blended the front line and the rear line together in your discussion presentation here?
Yes.
You're done, I mean, I get the rear, right? You know, I get the front. Are you done with that at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
The
What's
two are
next
tied
on
together. That's why I did it together.
Understood. Now, what's next on your list versus what's on my list?
Well, I think I already addressed this. There was a question of how many other parcels in the CBD would this apply to? And I mentioned them in my letter, my June 4th letter, 17, 19, and 21 Tokenique Road. And I don't have a map of, well, I do have a map, but I didn't submit it. It's really the Little Red Schoolhouse and two properties next door. They're very narrow lots, and if they're developed and the owners donate the land, they wouldn't be able to build because their lots are too narrow. But it's the quid pro quo for donating the land. So,
So that's
so
that's
somebody asked
in your
how much of an effect would this have some unintended consequence, or would it just apply to one lot? And the answer is it applies to at least four that I could find.
That's the 1057 change.
That's the 1050. Yes, that's the 1057 change.
Got it. Okay. Now can you move on to the front plaza? Or is that what's next on your list?
Yes.
Or no?
It is.
Okay.
Let me go back to here.
No,
Now,
it's
I'm
for
not
everybody's.
sure. Maybe David can start this. I think one of the questions was, why do this? Is it going to be used by the public, or is it something that's just for the building? How is it going to look to people going by? And it's actually part of a connecting landscape plan with Corbin. But David, do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm sure I'll try to do this quickly. Basically, as we were working on, the landscaping plan and the details of the Tibbetts building, which is down here on the corner, and that whole sidewalk, which is part of phase 1 for the Corbin district. And then we came upon the idea of building this building. We looked at this whole front area and thought that we could do better in kind of unifying the landscaping and create these little vignettes, these little outdoor plazas that people could enjoy that are legitimate plazas. And again, quickly, when we built 1020 Post Road, the little public plaza, the Vest Pocket Park that sits adjacent to Gopher Ice Cream, that was a Vest Pocket Park public space that was required under the original zoning approval for the gas station next door to Gopher. But nobody ever used it because it was small, unkept, not that appealing. We fixed it, put Gopher next to it, and it activated. And now you see people in that plaza most every day, most hours of the day from lunchtime on. Same idea here. we came up with the landscape architects. I take zero credit. Dennis Dale and the team from Towers Goldie came up with this idea of this beautiful bosque, this little tree-lined plaza at the end of the Tibbetts building. And we kind of wrapped around and we saw this area and thought, okay, let's create another landscaped area and a beautiful place for people to sit where they can grab lunch. I could imagine someone who works at 19 Old Kings Highway South or 30 Old Kings Highway South or 19 or 17 Old Kings walking back from Uncle's back to the office and sitting in this plaza having lunch. And so we didn't put the front door to the building on Old Kings Highway South. We thought it'd be better to put it at the rear facing the Center Street lot, which is really the same as 36. And by not putting the door there, by not putting the canopy there, to us, it seems like it's a plaza that's more owned by the public, not owned by the building. And so we just thought it would make it better to use. The only thing I'm worried about with this plaza is skateboarders. You know, as a property owner, you know, they're kind of out and about sometimes, and they scare me because if they slip, we'll get sued. But we thought that this would be just a really nice outdoor plaza for people to enjoy. And Dennis, you know, came up with some beautiful plans, which the ARB really appreciated, and we think it goes really well with the building.
Okay, so now my question is, this plaza is going to go in front of 34. It's going to tie in with the old Tibbetts building, which is on your screen to the left, 36 Old Kings Highway, which is in the middle, and our new 34 Old Kings Highway. Is that what you're thinking?
Correct. Yeah. And if you just look at where we started with the Tibbetts building, 36 before we renovated it, and 34 as it exists today, versus if you can imagine in your mind's eye what this will look like with a new building at Tibbetts, the renovated 36 Old Kings Highway, and a new building at 34, it's a fundamentally transformed corner of downtown Darien, in our opinion.
Right. And to your point, if you keep going further east, there's a big front area that's all landscaped in front of 30 Old Kings Highway. You can't really sit there. It's got a lot of hardscape and 3 and 2 foot walls.
There's
but,
a picnic
table.
Yeah, there's a picnic table in front, but because it's set back and it's alongside the front entrance to that building, it doesn't seem like you're supposed to be there as a member of the public. Whereas here, we think that given the front door, it'll feel a lot different.
I got you. Okay. So now you're tying it to the other two, which is more helpful to me. Now, then the other piece of the puzzle is you're doing this front public plaza as a quid pro quo for the roof deck, right?
Not so much the roof deck as the vestibule. I think Bob could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we really need it for the roof deck itself. That's not really a habitable space, but there's a small approximately 500 square foot vestibule that really is meant to serve as a vestibule for the roof deck so that the elevator could access it. Therefore, someone in a wheelchair could get up to the roof deck. We didn't want it to be only accessible by stair.
Right. So because we have 2.5 stories, we have a third story, you need to do a public plaza.
Correct. So we would have probably done a public plaza anyway, but it enabled us to create the deck, which we think is a great feature of the building.
Steve,
all right.
This 1,100 does much more than the area we need for the vestibule up on the 3rd level. The 1,180 square is there in case 10 or 20 years from now, a future owner wanted to build out the 3rd level. The plaza would already be in place, rather than, set aside a park bench that's, 150 square feet or so that gives you a little vestibule area. This is a much more substantial park.
It is for 200.
For what we're getting in return right
now. Okay. So that's the nuts and bolts of that. You guys done? Because I want to ask the commissioners if they have any questions.
I think that's it for us.
The landscape architect is here if you have questions about the actual plantings or the design. But other than that, I think we have covered everything Yes, we covered everything.
Well, the landscape architects gave us a great discussion last go around, and architect, if you want to give us a 2-minute overview of this, since you got some slides in here, we'll take it, but I kind of get it. I think everybody gets it. And we've been talking about this for an hour.
That would be Dennis Dale.
Hey, Dennis, you're up.
Yeah, this is Dennis Dale with Dale Design Landscape Architecture, working with the towers and gold on this project. We are excited to see this kind of come together because the
I'm sorry, I
site-
can't hear what he's saying at all.
Yeah, me neither.
Dennis, your connection's really tough. So I think unless anyone has a question,
I think we're good.
yeah, I think unless you have a question,
I
Dennis,
think
maybe
we're
we have it elsewhere, but.
I think we're good, David. Let's just go around. Jen, any questions on the front plaza and why it's there?
No questions on it.
Thank you. Kara, any questions on the front plaza and why it's there? Jim Rand, any questions on front plaza why it's there?
No questions.
And then Larry and George, any questions about the front plaza why it's there?
I'm good.
Could I just digress sort of for a second as to the front line that causes the area up front? But as I've understood it, we've wanted the front line to be at the same degree across or along parallel to Old Kings Highway South as in front of 36. The front of 36 and the front of 34 would be at the same spot. But
Right.
But
And
36, I see actually some of these maps show 36 as cantilevered, and that, you know, it's not the building itself isn't right at that line. There's a little bit of kind of what I call an offset because of the cantilevered effect.
The first floor actually cantilevers out beyond the basement level. So that what you're seeing here is, here's the cantilevered part. So you can actually, this is the basement level here, and then the first floor comes out to here, and runs pretty much right along. I mean, there might be an inch or two difference here.
Oh, okay. All right. I just was thinking of the front of that of 36 being pretty, you know, flat. But okay, I guess.
Yeah, you were okay. I got you. But this is the basement.
There's a picture of it in your. There's a picture of it in your packet, George, and that's where there's a dentist on the ground floor.
Okay, so it still counts as the front of the building to be somewhat elevated and have, that's fine. Okay, I'm with you. Thank you.
And you're good with the front plaza?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. We're checking them off, Bob. We did parking, we did stormwater, we did the front plaza, we did the front yard, we did the backyard, we did ARB. Will we miss anything?
DPW comments?
Sure.
Now that's a slide in the end that just has some brief comments. Most of the DPW comments were just comments. He has one or two questions, but I thought it'd be worthwhile putting a quick slide in. Oops.
Real quick, because I'll make sure we get to the public on this. It's 10:15.
Oh, all right. We could do that.
Let's go to the public first.
Okay.
Okay. Fred, we're going to go to the public. Is there anybody in the public domain that would like to speak to this application?
I have nothing, Steve.
I have Francisco Rivero, caller 3. Kate Perez is
She's with us.
I know she is.
I can. Can I make a quick comment?
Yep. Of course you can, sir.
Thank you, Stephen. So This is Francisco Rivero, 381 Mansfield. First, thank you, Larry Warble, for bringing up the topics mentioned in the previous public hearing. So 2 quick comments. One, on the property line, to me, it was...
Francisco?
Yes.
May I interrupt, sir? Are you calling about this application or you going back to Oxford School?
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's about Oxbridge.
Okay, oh, that hearing's closed.
But he can talk to me tomorrow.
You can call Jeremy anytime relative to that.
Perfect. I'll do that.
Thank you, sir.
Francisco. Well, I'm around tomorrow.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Sure thing.
Okay. Would anybody else in the public domain like to speak to this application? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. Okay, Bob, with regards to the DPW stuff, you're talking about Darren Ostifine's memo of May 28th? You want to go over?
Yeah, I'll go over really, really quickly. Okay. And what I did was I took the email that Jeremy's forwarded or Fred forwarded, copied and pasted and put in our comments. The first 2 are, I guess, statements. And yes, we need permits from DPW. Drainage report asks for fresh meadow. We covered that. Existing parking appears to be limited. He's got questions about that. But the answer to all of that is that triangle is already part of the municipal parking, and the town is already obligated under the shared parking agreement to maintain it, as well as
we beat that to death. We got that.
easement areas. So there's no change as far as DPW responsibilities. And he mentions a gift to the town. I've always maintained that these conveyances are not outright gifts. They're requirements of the planning and zoning system and the zoning regulations in particular. And you get something in exchange for it. So it's not really a gift. The recommendation is an as-built prepared by a surveyor or an engineer. Of course, I mean, that tends to be standard these days, and that's acceptable.
We're good.
That's the responses to Darren's comments, and I thought I would just throw a slide in to cover that.
I appreciate that. Okay. Are you done, Bob?
Yes, we're done. Right, David, we're done.
Anything else? Where's David?
Thank you, everyone, for your attention.
Okay, let's go around the horn. Jennifer Leahy, any last comments before we close the hearing?
No final comments.
Great. Kara, any final before I close the hearing?
Nope.
Moran?
Nope.
Larry and George? George first? Good,
No,
Larry.
thank you. I make a motion, we close the hearing.
Nice. Do we have a second? I think we do. George Riley. Sorry, David, you got cut off. The hearing's closed.
Thank you all very much. And I know that one was a little complicated for a smallish building downtown, but we appreciate your, taking your time to go through it with us.
We just need to record the vote on the hearing being closed. Everyone said aye, right?
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Maslin. Thank you. Thank you, Kate Perez. Thank you, David Genovese, and your team.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Have a great night. Take care.
It is 8:15. The next thing on the agenda is any other business required 2/3 vote.
10:15.
Let's make that record clear.
At 15, I'm not voting. There's no 2/3 on my side for anything else. I would entertain a meeting to adjourn. That's Kara Gately. She got the motion. And the
Jennifer
Jim Rand said second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. It's adjourned. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Hi, everyone.